It is not often that from this platform, the principal opposition party will welcome a statement of a veteran leader of the ruling party. Today, I warmly applaud the article of Mr. Yashwant Sinha, Finance Minister in the Vajpayee government between 1998 and 2003, because the article speaks the truth about the economy. Mr. Yashwant Sinha has written today his thoughts on the economy in the Indian Express. His views are not very different from what members of parliament belonging to the BJP and of course other parties have told us for many months privately and in soft whispers. It is a sad commentary on our times that MPs are afraid to reflect what they see and hear around them, especially in their constituencies. Yet we call ourselves a free country. It is not only MPs who have become silent. We have witnessed numerous examples of news reports and articles being pulled out before publication, of television interviews being taken off the air, of scheduled talks at universities being cancelled, of social activists being investigated on trumped-up charges, of editors and reporters being unceremoniously sacked, of academics and scholars being threatened, of judges being indirectly punished, and most tragically, of authentic voices of the people being silenced by brutal killings. Mr. Yashwant Sinha is therefore absolutely correct when he writes that, quote, instilling fear in the minds of the people is the name of the new game, unquote. The Congress party has assiduously exposed the many weaknesses in the economy and the terrible mismanagement of the economy. We are happy that Mr. Yashwant Sinha has echoed our criticism. He is spot on when he says that the BJP NDA government got an unprecedented oil bonanza that was wasted, that private investment has shrunk as never before in 2 decades, that industrial production is all but collapsed, that exports have dwindled, that demonetization has proved to be an unmitigated disaster, that a badly conceived and poorly implemented GST has played havoc with businesses and sunk many of them, that countless millions have lost their jobs with hardly any new opportunities coming the way of the new entrants to the labor market, and that the growth rate of 5.7% is actually 3.7% or less. I wish to remind you and the people of the country that the Congress party has, for nearly 18 months, highlighted these very grave weaknesses in the economy. We were told, in effect, to shut up. We were the first to speak up. We did not shut up, and we shall not shut up. In the last monsoon session, we wanted to raise a debate on the flawed implementation of GST and the state of the economy, but the government made sure that the debate was not allowed. The Congress party will continue to speak loudly and boldly on the disastrous path on which the country is being taken by the BJP government. I ask, how long will the government hide behind the rhetoric of the Prime Minister and the slogans of the party? It is a small mercy that we no longer hear the slogan, Achhe din aane wale hain. As I travel around the country, what I hear is, Achhe din to aaye nahi, ye bure din kab jayenge. My appeal to all of you, and especially to those who are knowledgeable about the economy, is to speak and write without fear. Dar ko chhod do. Yes, I'm willing to take a few questions. Yes.
We're also seeing a lot of traders understand the process, the infrastructure not in place. So your thoughts, your comments on the GST implementation?
So the design was flawed. The implementation is terrible. We pointed out the design flaws. They refused to correct it. We cautioned them on the hasty implementation and asked them to defer it by a few months. They refused that. When the implementation started, we said that it will impose a huge cost on small and medium businesses. That's proved true. Now even big businesses are now complaining that the entire manner in which GST is being implemented has created enormous difficulties for them. Small and medium businesses are struggling for working capital. Under the GST regime, you have to pay first, then apply for refund, and God knows when refund will come. In the meanwhile, where does the business go for working capital? For a small businessman, it is a small amount of working capital which he does not have. For a middle businessman, it is a medium-sized working capital which he does not have. For a large businessman, it is a large-sized working capital which he does not have. I think as you go forward, you will find more and more difficulties come up. For example, when they reject the refund applications, as I think my information tells me they are likely to reject, there will be so much litigation. Yes.
I come to the issue about what the government has responded to the Yashwant Sinha's article. They have said that the world, India today is one of the world's fastest growing economy. That's the effect that they've given. And really, the steps that India has taken is now an exercise in detail for them. That's how they respond to it. And while you are using Mr. Yashwant Sinha, you also know how much he attacked you and your government when he was when you were in power.
We are not using Mr. Yashwant Sinha. I suggest that you withdraw that word. We have been saying this for the last 18 months. Mr. Yashwant Sinha's views today coincide with our views. And his views are the views of several BJP MPs who have spoken to me. And I'm sure each one of us who's in Parliament can identify at least a dozen MPs who have spoken to a Congress MP. This is widespread in Central Hall. This is well known in committee meetings. Yet, no one is willing to speak up. I thought there was a BJP MP a few days ago who said nobody dare ask questions of the Prime Minister, an MP from Maharashtra. Now that is the truth. Now if in this atmosphere of fear, Mr. Yashwant Sinha speaks up, I think, forget that we are a political party. As an individual, as thinking persons, we welcome that statement because he is speaking truth to power.
You are not responding to the government's response.
Well, government has trotted out this lame defense several times. Thank God they no longer say we are the fastest growing economy. They said it for about 4 quarters and their bluff was called. Now they are saying we are one of the fastest growing economies.
So on few sides, like the government is...
No, let's give opportunity to others.
The question regarding the NITI Aayog Vice Chairman, he said that as far as the fiscal deficit target is concerned, there is no harm in reaching the fiscal deficit target for higher capital expenditure.
Well, I know there are some people who recommend that the fiscal deficit target should be relaxed. I'm opposed to that. I think it's a terrible idea. They should have reached 3% in 2016-17 or at least in 2017-18. They've set for themselves a target of 3.2, which itself is a relaxation. If they relax the fiscal deficit target further, it means that 1, the revenues are under pressure, 2, the expenditure is out of control, and 3, they're not worried about inflation. And 4, that they're not worried about interest rates going up. All this will only add to the distress in the economy.
Mr. Chidambaram, how do you see the economy, how will plan out, I mean, at least by the end of this financial year, especially when all the economic indicators are going negative?
So about 15-20 days ago, I stuck my neck out and said that the July, August, September quarter will also be bad. I think all the indicators show that growth in July, August, September quarter, second quarter of this year, will be below 6%. Whether it will be the same 5.7 or a shade more or a shade less, I can't say. But that's bad news. Please remember that unless this economy grows at an average of about 8%, it will not create the jobs that are required. Anything below 8% means you will struggle even to find replacement jobs, jobs for those who retire. But for the new entrant, you will find no job at all. So I think that this year appears to be a bleak year.
The student Prime Minister reported to the Economic Advisory Council. So finally, government accepted what they have done.
It's putting band-aid on several broken limbs.
The government on the job creation, government counter argument has been that there has been substantial uptake of mudra loans, micro loans, which is not reflected in the employment figures. Do you accept that argument?
No, I don't. Mudra loans are not a new feature. The mudra loans are only an aggregate of loans given by banks under ongoing schemes, including loans for self-employment. When we talk about creation of jobs, the job I'm talking about is not finding a job in your uncle's shop. Your uncle has a shop, maybe his son is already there. Then if you go to him and say, "Uncle, I need a job," all right, you also come along. That's not a job. We're talking about regular jobs. Those jobs are not being created. And they will not be created as long as the economy is limping along. Number one. Number two, you go to any gathering, which we do, and I'm sure many of you cover such gatherings. I think the Congress Vice President asked the same question yesterday or day before in Gujarat. You ask any crowd of, say, 1,000 people or 2,000 people, has any one of you got a job? The answer is a resounding no. What we are talking about is jobs, regular jobs in the public sector, regular jobs in the organized private sector, regular jobs in government. Those jobs are not being created. We are not talking about casual, temporary, fleeting jobs. You can't count that as a job. Yes.
सरकार को 20 महीने बाकी है, क्या सुझाव देंगे कि अर्थव्यवस्था जो है पटरी पर आ सके? क्या 20 महीने के अंदर अर्थव्यवस्था के आंकड़े में सुधार किया जा सकता है?
It will be a miracle. It will be a miracle if they can turn it around. But the only thing they have not claimed so far is that they are capable of performing miracles.
And the way Congress party is continuously showing the picture of the economy, do you think any similarity of today's economy with the period of emergency time?
I don't think anybody has related the 18 months of emergency to the economy, and you're the first one to ask me a question. Let's talk about post-1991. There were three crisis periods. 1997, Asian financial crisis. 2008, international financial meltdown. 2013, taper tantrum of the US Fed. In all these three crises, well, I happened to be there. The Congress party was there. And we tided over the crisis and pulled the economy back to the high growth path. I've got the numbers for each of these periods. The point is, this government, for 5 successive quarters, you see that graph has been published in every newspaper. I think some of your channels must run the graph today. It's a steady graph. 9.1, 7.57, 6.5, 6.0, 5.7. That is the number. Now the government is completely clueless about what is causing the decline. I wrote about it not last Sunday, but the Sunday before that. Clueless in New Delhi. First you must ask yourself, what are the causes of the economic decline? Only then you can address it. I think this government is completely clueless about what is causing the economic decline.
The Yashwanth article, which you have also given in writing, is also actually criticism of the finance minister. He has directly and between the lines questioned the competence and the commitment of the finance minister to deal with the situation, and you will blame him for the mess, right or wrong. Are you and your party also in agreement with that?
We criticize the government. The government is collectively responsible. Who in the government is finance minister is the prime minister's prerogative. The government must bear responsibility, and as the head of the government, the prime minister must bear responsibility. Of course, as the minister in charge of the portfolio, the finance minister has to share a very, very large part of the blame.
So yesterday, Vijay Singh said that he is happy with any place in Madhya Pradesh as CM. And today,
Let's talk about this.
I have a second
Yeah.
question. Second question is, in the context of the momentum that the Congress seems to have got, whether it be Rahul speaking abroad and then out here, Yashwanth Singh's article and PSU, many other things that have happened in recent times, do you think the Congress has finally got the momentum it needed to present itself, or at least be seen as the opposition India needed now?
See, we have always been the opposition that India needed against the government that is trying to impose its will on the people of India. I think we have always been the opposition. If we have not been able to assert ourselves, say, a couple of years ago, partly it was our failure. Partly, I think, and you will pardon me for saying this, we didn't get enough space or time among you. I think our voice was always loud and clear. Speaking for myself, I've been writing now for 2 years and 9 months without interruption every week. I think at state level also, Congress party has been speaking out. If you think we have discovered the momentum, then I think I'm entitled to ask you, give us more space, give us more time. Why should government worry? It's fleecing the people. Why should the fleecer worry? It is the people who should worry. I wrote about it last week. This is anti-consumer, anti-competition, anti-good economics. Crude oil prices in 2017 compared to May 2014 have fallen by 49%, even adjusting for the exchange rate. But retail prices of petrol are the same as in May 2014, and retail price of diesel is actually 2 rupees more today than it was in May 2014. That is why I quoted Dr. Manmohan Singh. Of course, he said it in another context. This is organized loot and legalized plunder. They are looting the people of India. When prices rise, people will pay. When prices fall, people must pay less.
Sir, you just mentioned that there will be economic slowdown in recent times. It was in 1907, 2008 and 2000.
No, I said 1997.
1997, yes. And you said that it was Congress party and yourself were there in India. And that is why you tackled the economy, there were no problems. So do you want...
No, I didn't say there were no problems. You're putting words in my mouth.